Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. My name is Sarah, and today my co-host Carrie Bennett and I are going to be making these complex topics of quantum biology and circadian biology understandable to the everyday person. Thank you so much for tuning in. We ask that if you are listening on audio only, that you take a moment to leave us up to a 5-star review. And if you're on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment. It will help to get the show out to more people. And before we jump into today's topic, just a quick reminder to head down to the show notes and check out my free resources as well as Carrie's free resources. We also do have courses on a variety of topics. If you are hoping to dive deeper, Carrie and I both have practitioner courses available as well for anyone who wants to begin to bring these topics to their clients and help them to implement these strategies into their daily lives. So check those out. We also have a co-taught course called Quantum Fertility that is available that allows people and practitioners to work on their fertility using these principles of quantum biology and circadian biology. Again, thank you so much for listening or watching today's show, whichever one you are doing. And let's go ahead and jump into it now. Just to sum up, it's about 3 tablets a day, because I've heard a couple people say 5 a day for it to be therapeutically beneficial. But if you want to calculate, the cost of buying a nice hydrogen generator to make water versus buying tablets, you would want to look at 3 tablets a day as the therapeutic effect.
Not necessarily. That's according to the study that we did, okay. Right?
Yeah.
Like I was saying, most studies use a much lower dose of hydrogen because they have these other hydrogen water machines that are providing around 1 milligram per liter of hydrogen.
Okay.
And that's the studies that were done. And it's showing therapeutic effects with just 1 milligram. And maybe they drank a liter of water, let's say. So you get 1 milligram of hydrogen, right? Versus stoichiometrically, one of these tablets will provide 6 milligrams of hydrogen.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Just one tablet. So probably you're only getting around, 3 to 4 milligrams of hydrogen, but that's just one tablet.
Okay.
So you're already with one tablet, you're already well above most clinical studies. Now in this clinical study, we used 3 tablets, right? Okay. And so now you're getting an extremely high dose. And so we don't really know what the optimal dose is, but there's just some trends that this higher the dose, could be a better thing. So in some ways, I'm thinking maybe it makes sense if you have like a hydrogen water machine or these bottles or something. You're drinking this all the time, right? It was your normal water. You can share that water with anybody. It's easy, but you could then take at least 1 tablet a day. Okay. And if you have the means and you have the desire, you try 3, maybe 5, maybe up to 10. I probably won't go more than 10 just because now you're talking about 800 milligrams of magnesium, which is in supplementing with that much magnesium is probably okay. But in general, it's not advisable to supplement with much more magnesium than that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. That's great information. Really appreciate this. So I have a couple of potentially rapid fire ones here. Now, they don't have to be rapid fire if you want to add more context to it, but this is just some of the questions that I got yesterday. Is it safe? Is hydrogen water safe for kids?
Yeah, if it's just hydrogen water, that's fine. But again, it's there are potential methods. Like you can make hydrogen water using aluminum metal, right? And then maybe that's not safe for kids, right? So as long as we're just talking about just hydrogen water, then that's fine.
In the context of pregnancy, that was another one. Okay.
Yeah, breastfeeding, and so on.
Question about this one says it's safe to inhale, right? And so maybe you can add some nuance to the inhalation method, if you will.
Yeah. So of course you can inhale hydrogen gas. That's one of the most common way. Well, it's one of the common ways. Probably hydrogen water is the most common way, right? And then different people will have different experiences. For some people, inhalation, I think like Sarah, I think she felt she noticed the most benefits of inhalation. But other people, they feel like they notice most of the benefits really with the drinking of hydrogen water. And that's where a lot of the clinical research is at. So in general, well, first off, we don't really know what the minimum amount of hydrogen gas needed for inhalation is. And maybe we can get away with just 15 milliliters of hydrogen gas per minute. But in the clinical studies that are more supported and we really have data for, they're looking at a minimum of about 1.2% hydrogen gas, which means if you do all the math, you're at a minimum of around 200 to 300 milliliters per minute. And then you're going up to maybe a liter per minute, potentially more than that. There's probably good rationale to say that there are going to be more benefits going from, say, 50 milliliters per minute to 300 milliliters per minute. That's probably pretty solid. It's likely that going from 300 to 600 or 1,000 is a little bit better. And then it's just really unknown, is really going from, say, 600 to a liter, going up to, say, 2 or 3 liters per minute, even more beneficial. I'd be much more skeptical about that jump.
Great. And okay, so then what about any clinical efficacy that you've seen in research for things like gut health?
Yeah, also, there's a number of studies with gut health, and because you're looking at two things. You're looking at the gut itself, which is just your own body cells, and improving, they're decreasing their oxidative stress, decreasing the inflammation, helping them produce things better, like the GLP-1 we talked about. And then there's the effects on the microbiome itself, maybe improving the diversity of the microbiome, maybe suppressing certain more opportunistic type of pathogens and improving the other types, as well as improving some of the metabolism of the bacteria, like we mentioned, increasing in short-chain fatty acids, for example. So there are actually a number of clinical studies indicating that hydrogen water is beneficial for the microbiome in general. Now, there are some potential concerns that maybe in certain cases, drinking hydrogen water could be contraindicated with those with, say, H. pylori infection, because H. pylori is, which causes the ulcers, does consume hydrogen gas as an energy substrate. And so if you drink hydrogen water, is that going to make it worse? It makes sense, but there's no evidence to support that. And there's actually a substantial amount of anecdotal testimonials where people who had H. pylori drank the hydrogen water and then they didn't have it anymore. And so that's interesting. And maybe there's some feedback mechanisms going on. And also, when you look at the Km as the Michaelis-Menten constant of the hydrogenase enzyme that the bacteria would use, its affinity for hydrogen is extremely high. And if you do the math on this, essentially that enzyme is already saturated with hydrogen gas because it's such a small amount. And so drinking additional hydrogen water may not influence the activity at all because it already has a lot there to begin with. And so by improving the immune system, improving the function and lining of the stomach and other areas, and just the G cells and everything else that's going on, maybe that could explain why, if these testimonials have any validity to it, that it's getting rid of that bad bacteria. Yeah.
It's basically creating an environment where the stomach can take care of itself so that bacteria doesn't have a chance to thrive anymore, basically.
Right.
So I love my followers because they're talking about, does it have any indication that it improves mitochondrial membrane potential?
Oh, yes.
I love that question.
And yes, actually, and you have to be somewhat careful with this because you only want to improve it if it needs to be improved, right? If you have a heightened level of membrane potential, well, then that's going to lead to more increase in free radical production, which sometimes in the short terms could be good, right? So you really want to have an optimal membrane potential, and especially during different times of assault or stress, that membrane potential will start to decrease, and then you're not making as much energy, and you can end up releasing cytochrome C, which signals apoptosis, and so on, right? And a lot of studies have demonstrated that hydrogen is really quite effective at helping to maintain that mitochondrial membrane potential. And so we've published several studies showing that, as well as many other groups. And so I think, absolutely, hydrogen is probably really important for the function of the mitochondria.
So then is it safe to say that it has a more adaptogenic effect in that instance too? It can selectively essentially maintain or improve membrane potential where it's needed, but not overdo it in other mitochondria?
100%. Yeah, and actually this whole area is quite interesting. But even the half cell reduction reaction of protons, electrons to make hydrogen gas, that is all actually right in line with the redox potentials of the different cytochrome enzymes. And so it's very interesting that it's right within that redox homeostasis to help adaptogenically, if you will, maintain that optimal level that we should be at.
Love it. I was hoping you would say that.
Thank you.
So what about any clinical evidence that it may be beneficial for vascular dementia?
Well, yes, there are a number of clinical studies. There's certainly some animal studies that are probably more specific on vascular dementia, but there are a number of studies with dementia and things in general, and Alzheimer's disease, that can really show some beneficial effects. And it makes sense because hydrogen's ability to maybe decrease oxidative stress and improve the function of the blood vessels and help with things like nitric oxide signaling, and so a lot of things going on in that whole area that it probably it's going to be quite effective for some people. It really kind of depends if maybe there's a genetic component to or whatnot, and then we actually published a study too looking at another hydrogen product, where it showed that hydrogen was able to improve like cognition and like blood flow and just the whole, because like your cerebral blood flow decreases with age as you get older. You just decrease the amount of blood perfusion and things. And so this product is actually infused with hydrogen gas, but it's a nitric oxide product at heart. And so nitric oxide, of course, is what causes the vasodilation, causes increased blood flow, but nitric oxide is a free radical, right? And so you can have some damaging effects if it's not fully regulated, and it doesn't last very long because it can quickly react and then you lose it. Whereas molecular hydrogen can help with the recycling of the nitric oxide, and so you can potentiate its benefits and decrease some of its toxic effects, So in fact, I just have one of these too. Let's see. Yeah, this is the product we did in the clinical study. It's just this HydroShot product. So it's another one people can try in the repertoire. And so like it's more like I would say like a functional beverage. But we've done some clinical studies showing like with like it could be beneficial like for TBI, for example. That's a big one. And then improve cognition, but also like athletic performance. So there's quite a number of things there because of the synergism that hydrogen is working with the nitric oxide, right? And in this whole area of the body.
With that, would you just have to drink it like really quickly after opening it?
Yeah, I mean, not as quick as the tablets, because the tablets, like we talked about, it saturates the water, but then it just produces so much, and that gas is not fully dissolved in the water. If a gas is fully dissolved in the water, then it's clear. And so this product it's in this container, and so it's stable for years. I mean, it'll be the same concentration. But once you open it up, just like a carbonated beverage, right? Then the gas will start to come out. But the gas is fully dissolved in the beverage. And so it'll last for, half an hour. Well, actually probably last for a few hours, right? But you ideally want to drink it within probably, 5-15 minutes or something. Yeah. So you can get that dose, the fullest dose of hydrogen at once, and get those benefits. So a lot of people found, drinking this like in the morning, for example, to start their day, a workout or something, because we actually showed you can actually measure if you do head-to-head comparison with like just taking some nitric oxide supplements and then do this one, and you measure like fractional exhaled nitric oxide, right? Or you measure blood flow to the brain using fMRI. You can tell a massive difference with the oxygenation and blood flow and everything using this compared to the other ones because of that incorporation of hydrogen and maybe how it's all dissolved together and everything. So like a protocol, people could try this like in the morning, before their workout or something, and then later, they're using, or they could do it with some tablets too, but later get a tablet or more, or whatever. So getting that high dose of hydrogen. And then if they have another method, whether inhalation or just drinking hydrogen water, right? So there's so many ways to get the hydrogen, and there's no necessarily a wrong way to do it. Well, I guess the wrong way would be to take a product that you think is hydrogen and it's not.
Right. Okay, so let's stay with athletic performance potentially here. So questions, just that I've always kind of thought, I was wondering about this, so I'm thrilled you're here. With exercise, as you alluded to before, we want that hormetic stressor. So does taking molecular hydrogen after a workout negate essentially that stress response that we want to have happen so that the body can adapt and become stronger, say, or better, oxygenation to the mitochondria, stuff like that?
Yeah, excellent question, and absolutely does not do that. And this is an area I'm very excited in. In fact, we published an article back in 2019 in the Canadian Journal of Physiology and Pharmacology, specifically addressing the hormetic effects of exercise. And in fact, I suggest that hydrogen, if anything, acts as an exercise mimetic and as a redox adaptogen that potentiates the benefits of exercise and negates some of the harmful effects. And this is critical because we do know with a number of clinical studies that taking high doses of antioxidants, and it's not just right after the exercise. So you actually can't get away with, well, I'll do my exercise, and then I won't take my antioxidants for later or something. It's just the fact that it's in your system. So, but we have shown in clinical but as a community of scientists, it has been shown that taking high doses of these antioxidants literally can negate and blunt the benefits of exercise training, decrease mitochondrial biogenesis and training adaptations at the muscular level, and a whole bunch of things. Same thing with anti-inflammatories. It literally can negate those areas, whereas hydrogen absolutely does not. That has been demonstrated very clearly. It does not negate those effects. And if anything, we can see that it can actually attenuate some of the excessive levels of pro-inflammatory damage that would cause for a longer recovery, or an excessive damage to the muscles of oxidative stress, or protein damage or something that is not hormetic, that is actually pathological. And so we can actually see that hydrogen can potentiate these benefits. In fact, some of the exact same pathways that exercise activates, molecular hydrogen can activate, such as the NRF2 pathway, AMPK signaling, SIRT3 activation. Many of these things, hydrogen mimics those same pathways. And so when you combine it together, I think you set yourself up for the possibility to really enhance or increase the likelihood of reaching your genetic potential.
Wow, I love this. So then, I'm also thinking of let's say athletes who have the potential for head injuries, right? Soccer players, lacrosse players, football, right? Yeah. Would it only make sense that molecular hydrogen was a regular part of their general strategy?
So, Carrie, what is the biggest thing you would say with people and red light therapy panels that doesn't get talked about a lot?
So many people talk about how inconvenient it is to kind of set them up. And sometimes they just want to put them directly on their body, and you really can't because of the non-native EMFs.
Yeah, exactly. That is why we are both so excited that we have these little battery operated bond charge panels. You can put them right here on your skin, and you're not going to be getting all that non-native EMF. You can set it up for your kids, put it right next to them, and you don't have to set them up in front of a big panel and make them sit 6 to 12 inches away, right?
Yeah. So when my kids have stomach aches or things, that is my go-to. I pull out that panel, I lift up the shirt, I just set it on them, and they could still be reading, coloring, doing what they're doing, while at the same time getting the red light therapy, like you said, in a very kid-friendly way.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of parents just even put them up on the ear when they have ear infections, earaches. It is just so, I'm just doing it here on my ear right now. It feels so good. So these are absolutely fantastic. You can use the code QuantumPod, all one word. There'll be a link down in the show notes to save on yours. And these are from Bond Charge. So if you are someone who just wants the convenience of a red light therapy panel, doesn't want to worry about non-native EMF, you can just put it right on your skin and get skin healing benefits, as well as infrared that can penetrate through and actually provide some mitochondrial support as well. These are absolutely fantastic. So check the link out down in the show notes and use the code QuantumPod to save on yours.
That was kind of the thesis
doing a lot of work around that.
100%. And that was kind of the thesis of the article that we published in the Journal of Integrative Neuroscience, on this whole beverage, because it's a whole thing is on the TBI aspect, because the nitric oxide playing a role to help get the correct blood flow at the right locations, the right concentrations at the right time, regulating everything, helping to decrease inflammation. There's so many areas where I'm thinking to myself, before a game, especially if there's any potential for a TBI, pounding one of these things and then going out there, because like prevention is always the best thing for everything, right? And coming prepared. And so, like, if there was like a drug you could take that could really help negate the negative side effects of a TBI, as long as you took the drug before, most people wouldn't want to sign up for that, because like, I don't want to take a drug right before, right? But we're talking about just hydrogen water or something, right? Just drinking hydrogen, which everybody already does. They already drink water. They already take something like water. So you could just take the hydrogen water, and that's even during the day. You don't know if you're going to get into a car wreck, or you're going to have a heart attack that day, or you're going to have a stroke that day, or whatever it is. So taking hydrogen water like in the morning, it's in a lot of ways, I think it's a great way to set yourself up, because we even see that the residual protective effects of hydrogen last at least 24 hours. Wow. So like in cell culture, we can expose the cells to hydrogen gas for say half an hour or so, and then we can see protective effects for 24 hours. So again, you drink your hydrogen in the morning, and hey, if you can get another dose in, whether or not that's needed or it's going to be more effective, maybe still more research. I probably think it would be better for you. But let's say you're not able to, but you get it in the morning, and then you go out and you do your exercise, or you inhale the truck that passed you by, and you get a whole bunch of their exhaust and fumes, and you already have that hydrogen in your system to protect your body from that a little bit, right? And then anything else that can happen throughout the day, you're kind of setting yourself up to have that protection of molecular hydrogen throughout the day.
I love that. So, and just to clarify, empty stomach, right, is what we're looking at in terms of the ability to absorb it, or is there any recommendations around that?
That's probably a recommendation, but you will always absorb the hydrogen. So a lot of times the clinical studies, there's so many variables trying to control for it, that tends to not be one of them. You're just taking the same time, making sure they're taking the hydrogen water is the most important thing. Right. Even if they have food or taking it with food, we can still measure in the same increases in breath hydrogen very quickly after that. And the differential of increase, right, is still the same. So it may not really matter. Personally, yes, like I think that it could probably be better to take it like in the morning on an empty stomach. Like I say, let's say you drink this hydro shot or something in the morning. You do your exercise, you start your day. Then later, you're taking the other tablets or your other hydrogen water or your inhalation session or something. But there's no real good evidence saying that, you need to take it on an empty stomach or else you're not going to get the benefits. Again, a lot of the studies, that's not what was controlled for. They're taking it with their food anyway, just to make sure they're drinking the hydrogen water, and we still see those benefits.
Wow.
Sarah, I've got two more questions. If you will allow me to continue to pick his brain, this is so exciting. The first one might be a simple one. I have a couple people in mind who will want this answer. And is molecular hydrogen or hydrogen gas, hydrogen-rich water, is it in any capacity being regulated by professional sports organizations as performance enhancement?
No, and it can't be, but it has been looked at. And so, in fact, one of our MHI advisor, Professor Ostoich, shared me some very interesting information, because he was contacted or working with WADA, the World Anti-Doping Association, doing studies on this as hydrogen as an exotic gas. And so it's really more of history to tell, and maybe I shouldn't go into too much detail on that area, but it's something that people are looking at and taking seriously because of its potential ergogenic therapeutic effects. However, hydrogen is very safe, right? That's the number one thing, is it safe, right? And number two, it's very natural. So again, if you're eating a healthy diet, you're getting the same hydrogen gas that we're talking about, whether it's in this product or these tablets or the bottles or the thing you're inhaling or all this. It's the same hydrogen molecule. It's not like this is one hydrogen molecule and this is the same. It's the same one. And so there's no way you could like test to see if you like, I don't know, OD on hydrogen or some PET or something like that, Sure. But it's also not a miracle cure. It's not like it's gonna give you some performance enhancement, that's so powerful and potent that it's unfair or something. It's just to really optimize your cells, optimize your body and everything. The things that are really powerful that you can really notice a difference within a day or a few weeks or something, those are things you probably want to avoid in general because it means it's doing something really strong in a unidirectional way that could be potentially harmful for you.
Absolutely. No, I'm so glad you clarified that. I am thinking of the fact that a lot of athletes these days, even at the college and high school level, are traveling so much, including by plane, right? In terms of the oxidative stress potential that you get and the dehydration. I mean, just the stressors of air travel, circadian disruption alone. So just thinking that. A last question from me, at least, is any synergistic effects being studied between molecular hydrogen and red light therapy?
I was just going to ask that.
There is a little bit. It's kind of a growing area right now. I actually been trying to work on a paper because we actually understand some of the mechanisms of how hydrogen is working with these iron porphyrin rings and some different areas in the mitochondria that we already understand quite a bit of red light therapy and how that's working with the photons and anyway, there's some interesting crosstalk there that could be some for some true synergism, not just as a hyperbole marketing aspect, but actually something more mechanistically that's going on. So it certainly is possible. And so something I'm hoping to explore here I was hoping to do it several months ago, but I just haven't had time.
Busy man, Tyler, busy man. No, thank you. That's thrilling because I just keep thinking to myself, I see great efficacy with molecular hydrogen. I see great efficacy with red light therapy. So wondering if there's any way that they could work together to enhance each other.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I would certainly recommend it because in the worst case scenario, you just wouldn't have an enhancement. For example, sometimes if something works on one pathway and something else works on the exact same pathway, you've already saturated that pathway, so you don't get additional benefits, right? But you still get benefits, right? Yeah. On the other extreme, you can have where you actually enhance multiple pathways, and then literally synergistically, you have an amplification effect, and you really get more benefits, right? And then with red light therapy, you potentially produce some free radicals, an excessive amount every once in a while. That could be a good thing, but maybe not all the time. Maybe in some cells that's good, but maybe this cell got a little bit too much. So maybe hydrogen could help to regulate that to make sure that those cells that are getting a little bit too much aren't getting too much, or are not getting the damage from that, whereas the other cells are getting exactly what they need, right? So that's, I think, a very important concept to consider. Yeah,
you read my mind completely in terms of because the dose response curve for red light therapy is set because of reactive oxygen species, right? Yes. In terms of a concern there. But clinically, just in case you want to know, clinically, we're seeing that in people who we really truly feel like have some major mitochondrial dysfunction, they're not producing adequate energy in any capacity. And we can talk about what that looks like. They need more red light therapy than the dose response curve would say is good for them. Yeah. And yet we're seeing continually clinical improvements. Now, I'm not saying bathe yourself like you're saying with hydrogen. I'm not saying bathe yourself for 10 hours a day in red light. But I am seeing a clinical need potentially for it to go beyond the dose response curve. And I was suggesting molecular hydrogen just as almost like hey, maybe if you are producing excessive ROS, this may be a way that your body can attenuate that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm thinking mechanistically and maybe why that could be, because there's only certain areas in the complex chain where you produce free radicals actually. And it's very selective. And so unless your mitochondria is functioning correctly, then you actually are not able to produce free radicals at the right locations at the right times. And so you almost have to do a higher load in order to get the right free radicals produced at the right locations so you can get that hormetic response. Because you can produce free radicals in other areas, but that's not going to benefit. That's just going to harm you. You want specific free radicals, like you produce superoxide here at complex 1. That's going to do some signaling, and then it'll be via superoxide dismutase be converted to hydrogen peroxide. There's a specific aquaporin that hydrogen peroxide can go through, do more signaling interactions, and then it's going to be a catalase, be converted to water and oxygen, and this process continues, but it's very regulated, and so it could potentially make sense that some of these your results is because they're not getting enough of those radicals at the right places, but they're getting an excessive amount in other places. So again, hydrogen could potentially play an important role there.
Well, no, I love that explanation. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
yeah. I could sit there all day, but I know we got to get going. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this has been amazing. I'm sure we're going to have more questions from this. So maybe we do some sort of a part 2 down the road. And my episode's going to air this week. It'll already be out by the time this one's out. So I'm sure I'll get questions from that as well. And it's just an exciting thing to talk about. And, Carrie and I both in our communities, not only has my daughter seen improvements in myself, but we've both had people in our communities that are using hydrogen and maybe not doing it like quote unquote perfectly, but seeing great results. So it's definitely promising. The only thing that we didn't cover, I think we talked about on my podcast episode, was the hydrogen bottles, and just because those are really, I think that is what's making the alarm bells go off for so many people, because there's so many people just like talking about these bottles that are likely not going to give you the same therapeutic benefits as a high quality hydrogen product or a tablet necessarily. I don't know if we can address that super quickly just to put in the episode to make it complete, but yeah.
Well, just in general, I'll just say that those bottles, they can work, but there are also those concerns. So typically you want to make sure that the bottle is certified to IHSA criteria. Mm-hmm. And any hydrogen water product, ideally, they should be certified. If they're not certified, that doesn't mean that they would not reach those standards. But we MHI, actually, if we make any recommendations, we recommend that you only buy products that are certified to IHSA criteria, because it speaks to, number one, it ensures the product is safe, it reaches the therapeutic dose of hydrogen that we use in clinical studies, and that the company behind it actually cares about these types of validation processes and things as well, right? So that's going to be an important thing. And then you're right, these bottles are getting popular, and so sometimes there's a lot of misinformation, and that's not always nefarious. There's people who have really seen some dramatic effects that they attribute to hydrogen, and they want to spread that word to other people, and so they start talking about, oh, hydrogen, and it does this and this, and then they try to explain the chemistry or something, and they get it totally wrong. And so, again, that's why I am stressing that people arm themselves with correct information. It's simple information, right? It's no more complicated to say that hydrogen is a gas than to say that hydrogen increases your body pH or something, right? One of those is correct and the other one is not, and they're both quite simple concepts. We could even argue that the pH concept is more complicated. Everyone is invited to take our courses, MHI certification courses. I actually have some 9-year-olds that are going through the courses right now, almost finished with the certification course. So it is for everybody. And you can arm yourself with this information. So if you do want to talk about it, or if you just want to learn more and understand this area, and of course, to invite people to follow me on social media, right? Just Tyler W. LeBaron, as well as H2MHI. So you can see the research that we're posting and talking about. And we also we just launched, this is so cool. We just launched a community in our Thinkific platform where we do monthly Q&As. So we have live, and people can get on there, they ask their questions, and they get direct feedback on anything that they want, even if it's not directly related to hydrogen. And I'm just there. I have, like I say, background in chemistry, biochemistry, physiology. I teach, chemistry and exercise physiology at the university. This is our areas of passion and hydrogen. And it's just, one-on-one time. And people are welcome to join this community and learn all this information, because I love to educate, and I love it when people have these excellent questions.
Amazing resource. That's great to know. And I highly encourage people. I also highly encourage people to listen to you on podcasts, right? More podcasts. Basically, in the YouTube search bar. That's what I did when I first started learning about molecular hydrogen. I just put your name into the YouTube search bar and just listen to these podcasts over and over, because then the language starts to become familiar, like how you're going to explain this to someone. You start to become familiar with, it's not just hydrogen water. You can maybe say it's hydrogen rich water, right? And start to explain why that's therapeutically beneficial or could be. So I highly encourage people to follow you in all capacities. It's great information.
No, thank you so much. And thanks for the opportunity to be on your guys' podcast and share this information with your lovely audience. And I appreciate everyone's, support and interest in this area for sure.
Thank you. We'll make sure to put the links in the show notes so people can take the course, join your community, and follow you on social media. And we really appreciate you taking the time out to talk with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you.